Hi there, web developers. 7 Bates here with the Kern High School District walkthrough tutorial. We are going to talk about aspect ratios. Essentially, I've noticed a number of our end users for the WordPress product are having a little bit of difficulty understanding the slideshows that display on the front of the websites. They're 710 pixels wide by 300 pixels tall, and what we're seeing a lot of are a lot of squished images instead of images actually fitting the slideshows directly. So we're going to discuss aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is basically just a word that describes, keeping the ratio of the width to the height for an image, regardless of what size it is. When you buy a big screen television, and you notice there's a 16:9 ratio, or an old television used to use the 4:3, those ratios kept the same. There's 16 pieces of width for every 9 piece of height for a 16:9 photo. Our slideshows display our images in 710 pixels wide by 300 tall. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how, using some basic photo editing tools, to resize your photos so they don't get squished, and hopefully we'll be able to get through all that. So what I am doing now is I'm operating under the assumption that you are using Adobe Photoshop. If you are not using Adobe Photoshop, then contact your administrators, because your school has licenses for this. They should have access to the software very easily. If you just don't have access to Adobe Photoshop, then I'm going to go ahead and show you at the end of this video how to do what we're about to accomplish in an online version of Photoshop that's very, very simple. So stick with us and watch through the fundamentals so that you know how to do it in the later software. So this is Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and open up a folder here with some images in it. And as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the photo. This is a nice shot of some guys at track and field. And I want this image to become one of our main slideshow images. Now, obviously, this photo is humongous, so we can't exactly use this as the default image. If we upload it, it'll, the software does a pretty good job of estimating where it's supposed to go, but it doesn't do it precisely, and that's why I know a lot of our users have been resizing their photos. So let me show you how you'd work in this. So I'm just going to take this photo. I can right-click it and choose to open it with a program, or I can, of course, just drag it into Photoshop, which is right here. It opens up the image. Now I'm going to go to the image size. As you can tell by looking at it, it's 3,000 pixels wide by 2,000 pixels tall. This is entirely too big for what we need. So if I choose 710 pixels in width, and as you can see, it doesn't change anything. I have to choose a constrained proportions. In Photoshop, that is how you maintain aspect ratio. So when I choose 710 pixels in width, it automatically adjusts the height to 472 pixels tall. Now, obviously, that's not 300 pixels. We're going to work around that. Watch how this goes. I hit OK. It resizes the photo. I just come over here and hit the magnifying glass twice, and it resizes the image to full size. So there's my image at 700 pixels in width. That's great. That's exactly the width I want. If I just saved this file and uploaded it, the software would do a pretty good job of guessing that you'd want to be about the middle, and it would crop the image for you. But a lot of our members have been going ahead and resizing the image to just 300 pixels tall, which is great, unless you do this. If you go to image size, let's just, basically what you guys are ending up with is a squished image. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to image canvas size. Now what the canvas does is the canvas options lets us adjust what the actual overall size of what we're working with. So I could tell it just 300 pixels, and I can tell it to squish in and do everything I want in the directions I want it to go. I can say that I wanted it to focus on the left or focus on the right. I'm going to tell it to go right to the middle, just to squish in and crop it. And it'll choose, it says, the new canvas size you've chosen is smaller. Some cropping will occur. Perfectly fine. Go ahead. Now, that looks okay, but the problem is we've cut off this guy's forehead, and that's not exactly what we're looking for. You guys want precision. I completely understand that. There's another really quick way to do this. One of them is just click the selection tool, and then just, click somewhere outside the boundary area, and just drag to the right. You'll notice that as I'm dragging to the right, there's a little box, and it shows me my width, and it hits, bam, 710 pixels wide. And as I drag down, it shows me my height. As I keep on going, I'll hit 300 here in just a minute. So 300 pixels in height. If I just let go, I now have 300 pixels in height and 710 pixels in width. I can just take this, go to the edge of it, move it around to where I want it to be, and choose to crop the image. That's a nice, quick, easy way to do it. I can then, of course, just save my image and upload that, and there's my wonderful little solution. Some of our end users are basically saying, however, they want a few more options, and this is something that I've decided to go ahead and email with this tutorial. I've sent you a PSD file, a Photoshop file. That's a layered file. I'm going to go ahead and open it here, and it'll be called the 710 by 300 template. The template itself is really, really handy because we can drag and drop photos into it and then just stretch them out to the size we need and then just save it. It's already predefined the area for us. I've also included a user guide to show you what the slideshow's interface looks like on top of your picture, so you can move it around to get the most out of what you're working with. So let's go ahead and work with this document. I've got the PSD file. I'm going to open up the Photoshop file. Then I'm going to basically take this picture and just drop it into my image. And what this does is it actually takes the photo and puts it inside the document. And now, as you can see by these little boxes around it, I'm working with a document that can be stretched and moved around. Now, I could, of course, just grab this and just move over to the width, and I could do that on the other side. But what I end up with is one of those squished pictures. We don't want that. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and start over, drag that and drop that in. And I'm going to use a special key as I open up the image and stretch it. I'm going to hit Shift and Alt. And by doing that, when I put my mouse over the corner, it actually just increases the image's size proportionally, maintaining the aspect ratio. I'll put this in a tutorial for you guys as well, but just remember, I just hit Shift and Alt while dragging that. So now I've gone ahead and widened the photo out to where I want it to be. And as you can tell, it shows you the width of 716 pixels by 476. That's bigger than our image, but I want to work with it. So I hit Enter after stretching the image, and it replaces the image at the size it's supposed to be. So now I can just kind of move it around and get it where I want it to be. I like it right about there. Of course, using the guide layer, which is right here, this shows me what my interface looks like. So I'll know that when I make a title, it'll look like this, and there will be those little squares that show me in my other slides. I can turn that layer off. You see the guide layer here. And now I'm only looking at the track and field image layer. That's about where I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose to save for the web. You go to File, Save for Web. Now by default, mine is set to PNG. I'm going to choose JPEG. Your quality settings should be set to 60, which is high. You don't need to worry about any of these other settings, and just hit Save. And then you'll just save that image where it needs to go. I'm going to go ahead and choose to save this as Slideshow. And now that image is saved for me. So I've got this image. I've gone ahead, I made another version of it here that way. And that's really handy and useful. We all know how I did that. But I'm going to go ahead and take into account that some of you might not have Photoshop. You should be able to get it, but you just might not. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and open up a new website for you here. It's called Pixlr.com, P-I-X-L-R. Make sure you save yourself the bookmark for that, because this is a free version of Photoshop online. It is the most popular online photo editor in the world, and there's a reason. It's really, really simple, and when you look at it, you'll realize it looks a lot like Photoshop. When you get to the website, there's 3 options for you. Some of these are more like using some of your cell phone apps. This one is the one you want to use, the Pixlr editor. You'll hit that. It opens the application for you, and it asks you, how do you want to work? Now, basically, even though this is an online application, it's just like Photoshop. The only difference is, instead of opening a photo and saving a photo, you're actually uploading and downloading it. You're sending the photo up to their web server, you work on it, then you download it. It's a really simple process because it really just looks like opening and saving anyway. So let's just open an image from your computer. I'm going to choose the track and field image. And there it is. And of course, as we looked at before, there's an image size of 3008 pixels by 2000 pixels wide. We don't want to do that. So we're going to go ahead and choose image size. And we're going to leave the constrain proportions button on, like we did in Photoshop. We're going to choose 710 pixels wide. Again, our nagging 470 pixels tall is there. We choose OK. Again, we just hit this twice. There we go. Our image is back. Just like Photoshop, right? Over on the right, we have layers. We have all these same issues, and we also have a width and height locator here in the navigator. So I want to make a 300 pixel tall cut, basically a crop. I can do it exactly like I did in Photoshop, very simply, and just click outside this box and then just drag out. Now over here to the right in the navigator box, you'll see that my X value is equaling 700 50 or something like that. But you can see the width has hit 710 pixels because as I drag to the box, it stops. It doesn't go any further than that. My height is 61, 65. I'm just keep on going down until we hit 300 pixels tall. And this, of course, is a little bit of a finesse job, but you let go. And now I have a 710 wide box by 300 pixel tall box. So now my mouse, when I move my mouse close to the edge of this, it turns into a little box. I can just click and drag and move this box up and down where I want it to be. If I wanted to focus on their feet, I could do that, but I want to focus and get my shot with a little bit of space above their heads, but not too much. So right about there. Now I can go up here to image and choose to crop. There we go. All I got to do now is just choose to file and save the image. It asks me what my quality is, and I can just leave it at the default values and hit OK, and save it to my computer, and then upload it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pretend that we've done that. We're going to move over now to the Kern Workforce Academy website. We're going to use this as a demonstration of how to upload the images. Now, most of you already know how to do this, but just to go through it, we're going to go ahead and add a new post. We'll give it a title here. We're going to put the content here. Then we're just going to go ahead and choose to set a featured image. My featured image is the slideshow one I made earlier. I'm just going to drag it in. There it is. I'm going to choose set the featured image. It sets the image for me. I feature the post, and I click news, and I publish. Once that's finished publishing, we'll go over to the website and refresh, and we'll see our non-stretched image right there. If at any point you find this tutorial a little confusing, maybe I did something too quick for you, message me directly. But essentially all we're doing is taking a very, very large image and cropping it down to 710 pixels in width by 300 pixels tall without skewing it. I know a lot of our users have been doing this method, and I'll show you why this doesn't work. We're going to right-click it. We're going to choose to open it with Microsoft Paint. This is why Paint doesn't work. First of all, humongous image, right? Well, you know, you can resize the image, and you can choose to have pixels. So we'll say 710 pixels wide by 472 pixels tall. This, I know, is what you guys have been dealing with. A lot of our users have been choosing to resize the option and unchecking the maintain aspect ratio, just changing this to 300. This is what you end up with. This is not good. Do not do this anymore, please. Please use the method I just showed you. All you got to do is just basically use the online versions and you'll be good. I'm going to send you the file for you to be able to drag and drop your images in there and use the guide. Try to use the guide. It's really, really handy when you're trying to put logos into your slideshows. If you wanted to create a new layer, you just basically go in there, and if you need Photoshop tutorials, just hit me up. We can walk through this. But let's say you wanted to put some words in here and you want them to really stick out. You could type in, you know, title here. And let's say you were working with this, and you know, the reason the guide is useful is because it allows you to see where you need to put your content so that it doesn't get covered up by the guide interface. See there? Sometimes our logos or our text, they get behind this stuff, so just having that little layer there helps you. And there you go. Now you got a slideshow that you could use and you know, save it and put it on your home page. It could be a big news announcement or something along those lines. Again, if you don't have Photoshop, just ask your administrators. If you can't get it, absolutely not. Just check out the photo editor from Pixlr.com. This program does the exact same thing. You can come in here and just make yourself anything you need and type text away, anything that you find useful, information here, and you know, you can increase the size of all of your text and you know, change the fonts. You can do all these things here for free. So please feel free to start using this tool, and hit me up if you have any questions at all. And you know, remember, no more squishing. Take care.